Go on then, Smokey, tell me where we are.
We are at Yoke Hill Farm fishery.
Okay.
A new venue for us, isn't it?
It's a new venue for me. You've been here before, haven't you?
Been over there on another lake. Did a brilliant feature for Match Fishing magazine with Kevin Falwell, catching millions of little carp like that.
Okay.
But we're somewhere different today, aren't we?
Right.
Different lake. From the Wilf's Weir.
Looks clear.
It looks gin clear.
Yeah, it does look clear. Looks very clear.
It's been fishing well, hasn't it?
I've been told it's been good fishing. Now, you know more about it than me. Are we fishing for little carp? Because on that feature you did, there was loads of little tiny fish, weren't
little
there?
tiny carp that have actually bred here on site.
Okay.
In the lake.
So obviously the water quality must be good.
Amazing, yeah. And obviously there's just loads of fish. But this lake's a bit different. I think they're a bit bigger, up to sort of a couple of pounds.
Right.
And I don't know about you, but it's been freezing on it for days.
I can't get a bite anywhere I go.
Everywhere we go,
so if I can get a few bites today, this will be
amazing.
It'll be brilliant. It's January. It's freezing cold. There was ice on the water. What, 2 days ago? 3 days ago?
Yeah. You rang me the other day. Said, "Where can we go?" We were scratching our heads, weren't we? Like, where can we go get some bites? And you actually suggested it. And
I just remember that feature you did, and there was loads of fish. There were probably like 4 ounce worth.
Probably not even that. 4,000.
And I just thought if they've grown on a little bit, well, at least we're going to get some bites. But if you say this lake's better and we're going to catch bigger fish,
there's a chance for a few bit better fish in here. The owner tells us there's some nice fish in here, so
right. So I've got some maggots. I'm going to scrounge some bread off you.
Yep.
You're going to be Mr. Pellet, aren't you, today?
I'm going to be Mr. Pellet and Mr. Bread.
Okay, so we're both going to, because obviously that's a standard approach. It'd be interesting to see how you approach your bread dobbing across compared to how I approach that. The pegs we've sat on are probably slightly different. I've got a lovely little feature on the far bank, which you're becoming more jealous of. The yucca. You'll fish pellets, I'll fish maggots, and we'll see how we get on, shall we?
Yeah. How are they going to watch your video?
They'll watch my video on my channel, and they'll watch your video on your channel. So, and what hopefully everyone will do is they'll all subscribe, which is obviously a big thing. Can I just explain about subscribing? I spoke to my dad the other day, and he says, "Oh, if I subscribe to a YouTube channel, do I have to pay something? Do I have to sign up to something?" No, you click a button, and all that means is when a video pops up,
you know about it.
You know about it. You get a little email, and it goes, "Joe's video is live." That's it. So please subscribe, guys. You'll get notifications when Joe's video comes up, my video comes up. It's a no-brainer.
So your video on your channel, my video on the Match Fishing Films channel.
2 contrasting approaches.
Links somewhere.
Yeah, brilliant. There, what a concept. What a brilliant idea. Brilliant idea. Come on, let's go catch some fish.
I know better than to call back. I missed your call. I finally think I'm fine with that.
So ladies and gents, as always, when you first sit down at a lake, brand new lake as well for me, you've got to have a plumb around. Get a plummet on, nice heavy plummet, have a plumb around. And I've found some really interesting things. Firstly, I can see my plummet about 2 foot down. The water's really clear today. So I'm not expecting, the fishing to be that good. And I'm also expecting the fish to be in slightly deeper water. I imagine if they were less than 2 foot deep, I'd be able to see the fish. So the far bank, when I've plumbed it up, I can see there's a really steep shelf. Drops down probably a metre off the far bank to maybe like 5 foot straight away. Really steep shelf. And I've earmarked that for maggot fishing. Got with me today some maggots. I know Joe's going to fish pellets. I want to fish maggots. I've got some maggots left over from the weekend, so I think it's worth chucking them in and having a go. And also it's nice to see 2 contrasting approaches. So a metre, probably 1.5 metres, 13 metres I'm fishing total length. 1.5 metres from the far bank. I've got about 5 foot of depth, and I think that's going to be perfect today to feed a little bit of bait and just to see if any fish come over the top of that. I'm going to drip in some maggots. I'm not going to start feeding loads of bait there early on in the session. Maybe I'll see how my bites go and see how the session develops, but maybe start feeding a little bit of bait there an hour or 2 into the session, just see how things go on from there. I'll talk about rigs in a little while, but I just want to talk to you how I'm going to start the session. We've got a lovely feature across the far side, a big bushy load of reeds. What are we calling that plant? A yucca plant on the far side. And that to me screams fish. Obviously when the water's clear, those fish are going to be hiding wherever they can. It's quite deep up against it as well. To me that's perfect bread dobbing territory. So I've scrounged a couple of slices of bread off Joe. Nice, the perfect bread. It's that thick orange Warburton's, the perfect bread for dobbing. And I'm going to start dobbing bread on the far side. That yucca plant looks absolutely ideal. The rig for that set it at 3 foot deep. It's probably about 6 inch off the bottom. That means that I'm going to catch the fish's eye if they're sitting at sort of mid depth, or if they're high on the bottom, I'm still going to catch those fish's eye. Now, I'm going to talk to you about rigs. I was going to leave it till later, but while I've got the topics in my hand, I'll talk to you about rigs. Rigs for dobbing bread, little 4x10s float. It's a little, I think it's a Malman Secret. It's similar to a Dusty, but it's just got a carbon stem, just like a carbon stem when I'm dobbing bread. Nice light stem. Simple little bulk of 3 number 11 slot shot, about a foot away from the size 16 hook. Line is 0.14 main line. Hook length is 0.10. Fishing here, we're sort of targeting fish of around £1. And also light line, smaller hooks. We know that that equals more fish in the winter. Now, the Maggot rig has got the same 0.10 hook length, the same size 16 hook, but I've got obviously a heavier float for fishing in deeper water, 4x14 float, and I've shotted the rig with a more strung out pattern. You know, so I've started the shot probably at half depth in 5 foot of water, and I've strung out number 9 shot throughout the rig. Water's gin clear. I want to get a nice slow fall of the hook bait. I'll probably be using double maggot, single maggot. I've got a few white maggots in here as well. Changing the colour. I think these fish are going to be really visually feeding. I think they're going to spot a bait from quite a long way away. They're going to spot it falling, and you're going to get bites if you can just let your hook bait fall a little bit slower. So there's the 2 rigs. Elastic for both rigs is orange reactor core. Superb elastic when you're fishing for a mixture of species. You're also using light lines. Obviously, it's a really light elastic, so everything's on a puller kit. You know, this time of year, take your time with your fish. Use a puller kit when you need to, and you'll just lose less fish. You know, we might not hook many fish today, so we want to make sure every fish comes out. Last important point, you might notice white top kits. I like these white top kits. I think they do make a difference, and even if they didn't, they're not going to hurt. So in clear water, white top kit, maybe a little bit less of a shadow over the top of the fish's heads might just make a difference, but you never know. Let's put a bit of bread on, ship across, see if we can catch a couple of fish. So I've got 2 different size punches with me today. I've got a 6mm little punch, and I've got an 8mm punch. Probably a little bit bigger than 8mm actually. It's probably about 9mm when you actually measure it. But 2 distinct sizes of bread punch, little punches. And I'm going to start on the big punch. I always like to start on a big punch just to see what's in the swim. You never know, you might catch a big hippo first drop in. And also, it just gives you less chance of those little tiny fish pecking at it. So probably more chance of a bigger fish first dropping with a bigger bait, which probably goes without saying. Now, when I'm fishing bread, what I like to do is just give it a dunk. So it takes on a little bit of water, and then give it an extra squeeze. That way it's going to sink, but also it's going to be soft. The water will soften it. You give it another little squeeze, and by the time you ship out, it's already fluffing up. And that is what the fish love about bread, that really soft texture of it. You know, bread's brilliant in the winter, whatever venue you go to. And I've left the line above my float quite long today, because the water's quite clear. I've left the line quite long so I can sort of swing the bread towards the far bank, and then keep the pole away from the float. I just think that's going to help with the water being so clear. And then obviously it's just a case of waiting. I'm hanging that bread sort of 6-8 inch off the bottom, and bread's such an attractive bait on its own, so visual, so soft. Obviously there's a flavour to it as well that fish seem to love, that they just sort of like home in on it. And obviously if I'm within sort of a couple of foot of a fish, he'll smell that out, see it, and he'll be on it pretty soon. I've seen Joe's had a fish across, so the signs are good. apparently they're not massive fish in this lake. We're talking sort of like 12 ounce to £1.5 pound, perfect size for winter fishing. It's the middle of January, it's freezing cold. We could be sitting at home in front of the fire, twiddling our thumbs, but we're made of sterner stuff, so we're out here fishing away. We've got a crowd. The crowd, we've got two spectators. All willing the float to go under. Which I hope it does. So often a case of finding the fish with this method. And what I don't like to do when I'm dobbing bread is fish to the extremes of my peg straight away. So I'll always go straight in front of me as a first drop in with bread or any dobbing method, because then that gives me scope to go further to the side later on in the session. Last thing you want to do is fish furthest length that you can to your left or to your right, catch a couple of fish. You'll end up pushing the fish out of your peg, because remember, we're not feeding any bait, we're not drawing fish, we're just trying to catch the fish that are sitting there. So straight in front of you at the start, then work around your peg as the day goes on. You might just have to go chasing the fish around a little bit. And then as you obviously get a bit more experience with how the fish are feeding and how the fish move around in your local lake, you'll probably be able to second guess the fish and find out where they go a little bit sooner. But I find straight in front to start with, and obviously we've been lucky today, we've got this massive, there we go, it's a bite. We've got this massive yucca plant in front, and obviously it's holding at least one fish. Okay, nice and steady. We don't want to, especially the first fish, you don't want to risk losing your first fish. Nice and steady, really soft elastic. Take my time, be interesting to see. I mean, the water's so clear. You can see the fish flashing 2 or 3 feet under the surface. Classic winter fishing really, but it's a mirror. Little mirror carp is. Nice little mirror carp. And when they have, you know, a big bit of bread, that bread's probably swelled up to the size of a little marble. And when they have it, they proper have it. They grab it and run away, let me tell you. They grab hold of it and they have it, because the bites on it are brilliant. Let's get out of the way. Here he comes. Cracking little fish. That is a great start. Joe's had a fish, I've had a fish. Look at that, for a cracking little fish. Beautiful way to start the session. So what I'm going to do now is I'll probably have another drop in that same spot, because I find that once you catch one fish in the winter, especially fish of that size, there's usually a few there together. We'll see if we can plunder a little shoal of fish. And then I always see these winter sessions as a sort of a suck it and see, and you've got to make decisions as you're going on throughout the day. So it might be a case of finding a new spot somewhere, plumbing up a new spot. Obviously, I'm dobbing bread across the far side. I might be dobbing bread down the middle by the end of the day. You just don't know what's going to happen. So I've got a real open mind. Joe's got another fish there. So it looks like the day's going to be pretty good. If it carries on like this, who knows, I might be feeding a little bit of bait a little bit sooner than I thought on that 3/4 line. But for the time being, we'll keep having a go on the old bread. Let's give it a little squeeze, bit of water. Another little squeeze again. You already feel it softening up. And then we're out. It's a great way of fishing. You know, cheap as well. What could be cheaper than a couple of slices of bread? Even cheaper when you nick Joe's bread. You're right. Exactly in that spot where I've just caught that fish. It's amazing how simple fishing can be sometimes when we've got all these fancy baits and all these fancy bits of tackle and a bit of bread set just off the bottom is all you need. Well folks, the day is going far better than I expected. Obviously with the water being so clear, I didn't expect a lot of action, especially early on in the session, but we're catching really well on this bread across. We found a little pocket of fish up against that yucca on the far side, the big bed of reeds, and I think there's going to be plenty of fish feeding. Joe's doing really well as well. Joe's starting to get plenty of bites, so I fancy feeding a bit of bait. So I've whacked a little pot on the end of my pole, and every time I ship out, I'm just going to feed that 13 metre line with a few maggots. Just going to drop a few in. Obviously I've got a little marker on the far side where I've lined up where that swim's going to be. So every time I ship out with that bread, on the way out there, I'm just going to drop in a few maggots. Now, I have caught a couple of fish slightly to the right of where I started, but I fancy just a trip back to this original spot, because I fancy that when you've left a swim, you've caught a few fish from a swim, you've located a little pocket of fish, even if you've not caught any fish there for sort of like 10 or 15 minutes, if you rest that area of your swim, as I have done, I've caught a couple of fish to the right, put an extra barrel up the pole and gone further to the right, caught a few fish there. When you come back to that original area of the swim, I think some fish might have recongregated. It's a beautiful word, isn't it? If it is a word, recongregated. And you might be able to nick a couple of extra fish. I also feel with bread, you always leave, there you go, there's one there. Nice fish. You always leave, you know, something behind. You strike and a bit of bread comes off, and the smell in the water. I think it's so attractive to the fish that they're probably just, even though it's a small amount of bait, you know, literally your hook bait being struck off every now and again, or maybe a fish when you hook it, it might cough the bread back out. It's just something being left there. So it's worth going back to that original spot and just see if you can catch a couple of fish. So now I've got a couple of areas that I've got on that far side where I can catch fish from, which is really good when you're dobbing. I've not had to change the depth. You know, I've been pretty bang on with that depth, to be honest. I've not got any line bites. Joe's fishing a very similar depth as well, so that seems to be the depth of water that the fish want to sit in. So I'm not getting any line bites, and obviously if I was getting line bites, that'd indicate maybe we need to shallow up. But also, nice little mirror carp there, but also we're getting a lot of bites, which indicates that the fish aren't sitting much deeper and just unwilling to come up and take our bread. So I'm going to keep doing this. I think we're going to have a really good day today, and I think those fish are going to come to some feed. So I'm going to keep feeding every time I ship out. Maybe just do it for 20 or so minutes, just to prepare that 13 metre line for when I want to go on it. I don't want to just drop on a line straight away and just start it off cold. I want to get some bait in there first and just start preparing it for when I want to fish. So just about 15 or so maggots in the pot. Just dip it in the water, and that makes the maggots stick in the pot a little bit better, so you're not bouncing the maggots out on the way out. It's actually a little Gripflex pot with a little lid, and you can pop the lid open if you want to feed smaller amounts of bait, but I've just made the lid a little bit wider, so I think we'll go back to that spot again, that spot straight in front. I've made the lid a little bit wider on this pot, which means I can just sort of like push the maggots in, and there's a little tiny lip that the maggots will hold in against. So I'm just dropping the bread in and then just making sure that my pole is as far away from the float as I can get it. So I've got that sort of like 3 foot of line between the pole tip and float. There's no wind today, so I can do that. If it was probably a little bit more windy, I'd put a couple of back shots on just to keep everything tighter. But there's no real wind today, so I can keep the pole away from the float, and even though it's a light float, it's still holding there really nicely. We might be able to get into a nice routine here where we feed a little bit of bait at 13 metres half, you know, as we make the trip out to that far bank, catch a fish on the bread and then repeat the process. But although the bites are starting to come quite regularly, we're not in bagging mode yet. Be nice to get actually some fish feeding on some bait, and then we can really start catching well. But for a January's day, you know, you can't knock this fish in. There you go, another fish. You cannot knock this fish in. Brilliant fishing. When you think the lake was, you know, we've had some really cold weather. The lake was froze a couple of days ago. I don't think this is a very big fish, but probably one of the smallest fish. It is only a little carp, look. Yeah, the lake was froze a couple of days ago, so it's great to get out and get a few bites. But that shows you, look, I'm using a nice big bit of bread and you still catch, can't even hold in that hand because my hand's covering it. But still catch little fish like that. It's all about bites though this time of year. It's better than sitting at home, that's for sure. I think I'm going to do this a couple more times, then I'm itching to get over those maggots. I reckon 2 or 3 more goes at doing this. And I'm not really a betting man, but if I was, I think it's even money that there's going to be a stack full of fish waiting for me on that maggot line. So there we go. Another cracking little mirror carp. And I think it's time now to get on that maggot line. So pick up the maggot rig. I think double maggot's a good starting point. There's not a fish in the world that will refuse 2 red maggots. We have to steal the pot, I think, from this top kit. Steal that pot. Put the pot on. Let's see what we can catch. Obviously, we've been feeding that line now for maybe 15-20 minutes. I know I plan to feed it for maybe half an hour, but I'm itching to have a go on it. Got a leaf on it. Okay. Let's see if we can get a bite. I think if we can get a bite feeding some bait, we're in for a really good day. Right, so my bait always goes in first when I'm fishing a little pole mounted pot. So obviously I want the bait to get down, the loose feed, to get down to where I'm presenting a bait as fast as possible. I see a lot of people ship out, put their float in the water, they settle their rig, then they tap in their bait. And obviously that means that loose feed is falling around the rig. Quite often they'll get a line bite rather than a proper bite. They'll strike, miss a bite, or foul up the fish. They're out of the rhythm totally. You know, it's worth taking a little bit extra time to make sure that you hook every fish in the mouth. So I've made sure that bait's settled, I've hung my float up, a little tiny indication straight away, that's interesting. I've held my float up sort of 6 inches out of the water, and then, there we go, lowered the rig in, and we've got a fish straight away. Tiny little indication. Obviously, the rig is strung out, so it's not a direct rig when it comes to showing bites, because the shot's spread over the rig. So what I might do is, if we carry on getting little tiny indications, and the bites are so small, because they are small fish, they're not massive fish. I'll probably pull those shot down a little bit, make the rig a little bit more direct, so we'll see the bites quicker, everything will happen quicker, we can get the bait down to the fish a little bit quicker. But this first drop in on this line is a brilliant sign. There is a slightly bigger fish as well. I've got about a pint of maggots, and if it carries on like I'm expecting it to, Joe's catching fish on his pellets as well, so the signs are good for a good day. If it carries on like this, a pint of maggots might not be enough, but we'll fish till we run out of bait, I think. There you go, just a little common carp, slightly bigger. I always think a common carp fights a little bit harder than a mirror as well, he scraps a little bit harder. There you go. So that worked out nice, didn't it? I think we'll repeat that process. A couple of maggots, double maggot. Two red maggots. 15 maggots in the pot, only a little pot. Dunk the pot so the maggots don't jump out. Hook a leaf on the ship out. There's 2 leaves in the water at my feet, and I've managed to hook them both so far. Feed that bait, and then we'll sort that leaf out and then the rig. Caught a leaf, Joe. There we go. So a lot of you might have thought, oh, I've caught some fish, I've fed a bit of bait, I've caught some fish, and then that's it for the day. You don't need to feed any more bait, or you need to see if you can catch another fish. But carp fishing, F1 fishing, bream fishing, when you're fishing for quality fish, it's always best to feed a little bit of bait before you present your hook bait. So every time I drop a rig in, I'll feed a little bit of bait. Obviously, dobbing around is a little bit different, you're fishing for different fish, but when you're fishing a swim that's you've fed some bait on, you'll need to feed and sort of set that trap every time you drop your rig in. Got the float dotted right down, so any little indication we should see it. Plumb the rig up, so we've got sort of like, we're just on the bottom, a little tiny indication then. Maybe shouldn't have struck at that, got a bit giddy and struck a bit too early. I'll plumb the rig up, so we're just on the bottom, maybe an inch of line on the bottom. I want to make sure that I'm fishing on the bottom. I don't want to be fishing with my rig off the bottom. But I don't want too much line on the bottom where you might not see an indication if a fish quickly picks up your hook bait and blows it out again. There you go, just as the hook bait settles, we're in again. Superb. It's great to be able to feed some bait at this time of year and feel like you're actually making a difference to the swim rather than just putting single hook baits at fish. It'll be interesting to see. I'm not too sure what the stocking is on this lake. I think there's some skimmers in here and maybe the odd bigger fish as well. Be interested to see if we can alter the feeding later on and see if we can catch some different fish. But I'm not complaining when every put in is a carp. Beautiful little mirror carp this time. Every fish is putting his fin up for us, look. So We'll carry on doing this. We'll keep an eye on what Joe's doing. Might even have a trip over to see what he's doing because he's fishing pellets. Be interested to see what he's doing. And report back in due course. So as soon as I've mentioned going over to Joe to see what he's doing, he's jumped off his box.
About to come and see you.
I think it looks like you must have some secrets on your side tray that you don't want me to see.
There's absolutely no secrets, Rob, is there?
No, there isn't.
Not today.
Not when you're catching fish like this, mate. No.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's brilliant fishing. January, bite a chuck, little carp. What more can you ask for?
Yeah, and they're nice little fish as well, aren't they?
Yeah, they are nice little fish. Obviously,
not little diddy one.
Look, everyone wants to go. Just put maggots in the pot.
Yeah.
Hang on a minute. Everyone wants to go to a river, catch a £2 roach every chuck on a stick float. You know, that's the purest way of fishing. But let's get right. Beggars can't be choosers. At this time of year, we just want to get some bites and put some fish in the net. And that's what we're doing today. We're having it's absolutely brilliant. So, maggots in the pot.
Yeah.
Tapping them in, tapping a few in.
Float.
Nice light float. I've started getting some bites. 4x14 float. I've started getting a lot of bites now. So, I'm thinking.
So where are you in relation to that slope then? Are you at the bottom?
I'm at the bottom of that slope. Bottom of that slope.
Tapping your maggots in.
Tapping the maggots in. Hold the float out. You know, standard stuff. Just I tell you what, people get confused about how they present different baits. I'd fish pellets, sweet corn, meat, maggots, bread, punch for roach. It's all the same. You know, you hold your float out, let it sit for 6 inches, then lower it in. You know, that's when you're fishing. When you've got fish in your peg, you might have to start laying your rig into the side and doing different things when it's not so good. But
here, I've noticed, especially in my fishing today, it's such a visual venue, isn't it? Like as soon as you move your hook bait, lay your rig in, the bites.
I'm pleased you mentioned this. I'm not a massive fan of lifting and dropping my rig. I like to keep it nice and still and wait for a fish to find the bait.
It's not the day, is it?
But lifting and dropping the bait, just lifting it 6 inches, lowering it back down again. I think it's because the small carp, they're really aggressive. Yeah, they're aggressive. The water's clear, they're spotting it, they're straight on it straight away. You know, it's really good fishing. Do you think the maggots are outscoring the pellets, or do you think we're just neck and neck because there's loads of fish?
Pretty even, isn't it?
Yeah.
The beauty of pellets is it can be really quick, can't it? Like there's been days today where it just settles them straight on.
Yeah.
But then you have little spells, but the maggots are so consistent, aren't they?
Maggots have been consistent, yeah.
I'd say.
Yeah. I think maybe, I always think that maybe pellets work better early on in the session as well. I think the pellets are a bit more of an instant bait. Maggots take a little bait time, but I've started feeding this after sort of maybe an hour of the session, and within 20 minutes of feeding, I've dropped on it, and there's fish there already. Yeah, so it's good. It's good. What's your plan then? Are you going to carry on? Do you think I reckon you might catch short. You know, do you reckon you catch short?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to start fishing some pellets. Got a few little tricks that I'll show you with that.
Yeah.
About feeding and stuff.
Yeah.
And hopefully, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't come short for it.
There's enough fish feeding, but obviously it's clear, isn't it?
I don't keep mentioning it. But
the only thing I think is short. You might get a run, but it might last like 15-20 minutes before they back off. Yeah. That's the only thing I think was short. Other than that,
there's another nice fish here.
Yeah, beautiful little fish.
Nice one.
Yeah, beautiful.
Right.
As we thought, ladies and gents, the fishing is getting better and better. So, just decided to bulk everything down a little bit. So I've gone for a bulk and 2 droppers now on the rig, make everything a little bit more direct. I'm still on the same hook bait, double maggot, but hopefully we'll see our bites a bit quicker. We can get the rig down to the fish a little bit quicker as well. Just try and speed up the catch rate a little bit. So like 15, 20 maggots in the pot. Still the same feeding. Yeah, fantastic fishing. Just dampening those maggots down helps you ship out a little bit faster as well, so you're not bumping them out. So bait into the swim. Pull the rig over the top of it and just let everything settle. Should just happen a little bit quicker now. Now we've put that weight down. Let everything settle. There's no rush still. We just want to make sure we hook a fish properly every time. There we go. bite straight away, and that has definitely speeded everything up. I think this is the future, guys, and I can see me doing this till the end of the session. I know Joe started feeding the line short, so that will be interesting to see how that pans out. But you've just seen how fast that was. I don't think we can catch any faster than that, do you? So I'm willing to take my chances and carry on doing it at 13 metres rather than risking splitting some fish up or risking spending time a bit shorter. Amazing as well that I've just had a couple of smaller fish, so sort of like 6 ounces, the fish that we don't really, you know, nice to get bites, but we don't really want to catch 6 ounce carp. It's nice to catch these chunky sort of fish around a pound. And it's strange that I've just changed the presentation a little bit and all of a sudden we're attached to a decent fish. Nice fish this is. Again, gin clear water. You can see the fish a couple of feet down. Nice common. And that, isn't it strange, probably about £2 that fish, maybe even bigger, £2.5. Biggest fish of the day. After we've changed, hopefully you can see that, after we've changed presentation. So just makes me wonder if sometimes, especially when the water's clear, if these fish get used to seeing the hook bait falling down in a certain way, and then you change the presentation and all of a sudden the cleverest fish of the bunch decides to have a go. But this, I think, is the future. Bulking that rig down, fishing more aggressively, and let's see if we can really get into these fish now for the last sort of like half hour, 45 minutes of the session.
I know better than to call back. I missed your call, I finally think I'm fine with that. I know it hurts when love bites back, but it's your fault, I wish you'd just accept that. I got a better place to be, where the only focus is me. Neon wavelets got me feeling like I'm flying. I've been holding on to these dreams, I'm ready to take the leap, 'cause I've been holding that in your stars.
Well, Smokey, am I pleased that you brought me here today for this?
Day, yeah?
Oh, absolutely brilliant. This is only
A few fish.
a few fish. You know, we've put one net in and put a lot of fish back, if I'm honest. Talk to me how your day's gone. It's not a boiling hot day. We'll be all right for 30 seconds or so with these fish. So talk to me how your day's gone.
Well, obviously we've both started off on bread, haven't we? Dobbing bread.
Yeah.
And to be honest, the sport's been really good. Found a little pod of fish over to the far bank. Great stuff, but I was itching to get on pellets. And to be honest, pellets have been really good.
Has it? Just feeding any bait, I think, has been good. These fish, look at them. You know, look at the size of them. They want to eat bait. And
Lovely fish.
I'm not being funny. Like I said earlier, there's the fact that if you're a purist, you want to go and catch some really nice fish somewhere, or you want to go catch some bream or roach or whatever you want to do, you just can't do that in January very many places. So going to a local fishery that's got a lot of small carp or F1s or something like that, it's a great way of getting some bites, just getting out and catching some fish.
Yeah. And we've been laughing all day.
It's been great. We've sat next to each other, had a right laugh. So my day, I bulked that rig down as well, you know, as I showed everyone. I bulked that rig down, and obviously it's just like flicking a switch and fish a chuck then till the end of the day. Obviously that coincided with the light fading a little bit, but you know, the fish have just gone mad. It's been brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So just to reiterate, you want to watch Joe's story, watch it on his channel. If you want to see my side of the story, watch it on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe, helps us out loads. You'll get notifications with all the videos. Until next time.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
Tight lines.